Hello, good evening. Channel 4 News establishes that Scotland Yard's fraud squad will soon be investigating the Guinness scandal. The decision to send them in will be taken next week because the offences suspected are so serious. We have a report. And we speak to the new man tonight taking over as Guinness's chief executive. What kind of job does he face in repairing the damage to the company's battered reputation? We report too the votes being counted in the Irish Republic. It looks like a close thing, but Charles Hockey says he's confident of a majority. Also tonight, the United States Senate on collision course with the President as the key committee votes to stop financing the Nicaraguan Contras. Local services, the government shelve legislation. The opposition hear the sound of election decks being cleared. Chernobyl, from Soviet television, the most graphic detail yet of the world's worst nuclear accident. And how the chariots were dragged through the courts and didn't come out smelling of violets. All will be revealed later. But first, two new developments tonight in the Guinness affair. A new chief executive, Anthony Tennant from Grand Metropolitan, takes over running the company, and Channel 4 News has learned that a decision to call in the fraud squad into the Guinness company is imminent. The Department of Trade and Industry's inspectors have been investigating allegations of insider share dealing since last December, but calling in the police would imply that they've uncovered evidence of even more serious crimes. The final decision is to be taken after a meeting next week between the inspectors, the fraud squad and the Director of Public Prosecutions, but it's expected that the police will be called in. Robert Parker has the details.
For the last few weeks, there have been claims and counterclaims that the fraud squad was about to be called in to investigate the Guinness affair. But we now understand that the police have been kept in close touch with the progress of the Department of Trade and Industry inquiry ever since it started 11 weeks ago. One reason that the police have not been called in before now is that the DTI inspectors have wider powers than the police in dealing specifically in this area of shared dealing, and both felt that the witnesses would be more likely to cooperate with the DTI's inspectors. The inspectors have talked extensively to most of the key players, including Ernest Saunders, the sacked Guinness chairman, Olivier Roux, who resigned as Guinness's finance director, and to Roger Seelig, a director of Morgan Grenfell, the Guinness Merchant Bank, who also resigned last year. But the DTI's star witness appears to have been Sir Jack Lyons, a leading city figure who admitted that he'd received more than £2 million from Guinness for share advice he gave them. Sir Jack only 4 weeks ago was unceremoniously fired as the UK advisor to Bain & Company, the highly secretive American management consultants who have been closely involved with the running of Guinness. Only last month, Sir Jack organised a lunch at Bain's for Mrs. Thatcher. Sir Jack has had 2 lengthy meetings with the DTI inspectors. He denies that he has done anything wrong, but being closely connected with many leading city figures, Sir Jack is said to have been able to provide vital information about Guinness share deals. And it's this information which is thought to lie behind the imminent decision to call in the fraud squad. The implication of calling in the police would be that the DTI inquiry has discovered evidence of criminal offences, which are more serious than the inspectors can deal with. They can deal only with breaches in the Companies Act, for which the maximum penalty is 2 years in jail. Evidence of more serious offences would result in the Director of Public Prosecutions calling in the police. The formal decision to call in the fraud squad is expected to be taken at a meeting next week. That meeting will be attended by the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. John Wood, whose speciality is fraud, the 2 DTI inspectors, Mr. David Donaldson QC and Mr. Ian Watt, a chartered accountant, as well as the head of the fraud squad, Commander Malcolm Campbell, and various lawyers. One Tory MP who's been calling for police intervention tonight welcomed the news, but what does he expect they'll find?
I don't know what it will lead to. I suspect there's been intimidation of people who were opposed to the Guinness takeover. I suspect that they may find that money was misused in other ways and not simply to support the share price or encourage people to support the share price. But of course I don't know. I think that the police should go in and see what they find.
Senior officers here at the Fraud Squad's headquarters are in little doubt that when they begin their inquiries, it will lead to one of the most dramatic and sensitive operations they've ever undertaken, going far beyond the immediate affairs of Guinness. It's an operation that could lead to the charging of some of the most senior figures in the city with criminal offences involving hundreds of millions of pounds. As one insider put it, it will make Big Bang look like damp squib.
Robert Parker.
ITN's Channel 4 News.
The Guinness affair is expected to take a dramatic new turn in the next few days. Tonight we've learnt that the Scotland Yard Fraud Squad is almost certain to be called in. The reason that they've not been involved so far is that it was felt that the inspectors from the Department of Trade would find it easier to collect vital evidence. And that evidence seems to have come from Sir Jack Lyons, a leading city figure who's had 2 lengthy meetings with the DTI inspectors. He denies doing anything wrong, but's already admitted receiving £2 million from Guinness for advice on shares. Only 4 weeks ago, Sir Jack was unceremoniously fired as the UK advisor to Bain & Company, the secretive American management consultants who've been advising Guinness for the past 6 years. The implication of calling in the Fraud Squad is that the DTI inspectors have discovered evidence of crime more serious than they can deal with under the Companies Act, to which they are confined. One Tory MP who has been calling for police intervention tonight welcomed the news. But what does he expect the police will find?
I don't know what it will